This is just around the corner. Right here is the corner of the building where there's this wonderful mountain laurel which blooms in the springtime, late spring. We're going to pan over here to plants that we have purchased, flowers, marigolds to keep the little bunnies and everything. We put a border around the outside and you'll see the finished product with marigolds. Then I have Japanese eggplant to go in here, basil, purple basil, opal basil they call it. Chives are already growing. We have a little hanging plant with some very pretty petunias to hope to bring in the hummingbirds. And I did set up a hummingbird feeder over by the kitchen window. Yesterday was warm, up into 74. We're expecting 50s, 60s for the next few days, which is really great for the springtime in May to get things in the ground comfortably. You don't want it too cold or too hot. Too hot on a hot day, you don't do much planting of vegetables and flowers that are in pots started. You wait for the late evening, maybe around 7 o'clock in the springtime when you can get out, so they don't shock. The heat shocks plants when you transplant them, even if they're already started. You really optimally would have liked to get seeds in the ground earlier, but we'll show the progress. Let's look forward to some produce, tomatoes. I have an heirloom purple tomato. I'll have to get the names for you in my next taping. And then a yellow cherry tomato and an Italian plum tomato, plus multiple herbs, all kinds of parsleys, tarragon. This little garden is really coming along. The strawberries are in bloom, and we'll have some fruit on them. And the mint's growing. We had mint tea today. So let's take a walk around the side. Here's the flowering mountain laurel. It's got lots of flower buds. Well, here we are with a hydrangea plant that I received, and for some reason it was not doing well, so I've just pruned off the two main heads, and the root-bound part has several branches with brand new growth, which I'm hoping will be a rejuvenation of this lovely little blue hydrangea. Looks good to me. One of the flowerets from the mountain laurel came off when I was pruning it, so I put it with some purple violets and white violets. Charming little vase that a friend gave me here on a little basket in the garden. And right next to it is, in the ground, right next to the basket, is where we're going to put the hydrangea plant and take tender care and see what happens. We're out here now. It's a little bit shady with everything set up to fill up all the buckets. I have my little rolling cart with garden stuff, and pails are all ready, just about all loaded. And we have all our plants there in the background towards the building, all our sets, and I opened up a garlic clove the other day, and it was all growing, so I've decided to put a little garlic patch in. And some tables and containers to bring things up to working height, so I don't have to bend over too much. We're in the town of Norfolk, Massachusetts, at my apartment. This is Ruth. Thank you. Here we are, May 21st. My little front garden by my front door and my underneath the windows to my living room. We've had this garden going off and on for a few years. We have hostas that we had split, which have developed nicely. We have daylilies. We have a hydrangea which came to me on Mother's Day from my family, and that's over by the base of the American flag. It is a small one. It fell over on the porch when it was in waiting for me. There's lots of wild white violets, which are spectacular, and there's a little Johnny jump up in there somewhere. Seems like this corner daylily will, part laying down broke off, but there is still it's very small at the base of that bamboo sprout. And then we have a little bucket in there to hold little toads. We keep it moist. And I have a rain catcher gauge, which I have to find somewhere in my garden stuff. So, it's a beautiful, wonderful day, waiting for everything to start blooming. Well, we're going to take a walk around the corner, which is behind that beautiful mountain laurel, which I've been taking care of. It's spectacular in the blooms. We'll see them later in the season. We're around the corner on the opposite side of between buildings, and my neighbor has a charming little elf on a mushroom, and she's been caring for this little garden here for years. So we'll pan over here to what is the beginning or restart of a garden that I've had here off and on for a few years. Most everything is purchased that goes into the garden. So we just have to take those buckets, put drainage holes in them, prepare them for the tomato cages, and in go 2 heirlooms, plum tomato and a cherry tomato. And all the herbs, etc., are hunkered down among those marigolds, which allegedly keep those little bunny rabbits, deer, etc., at bay. We'll try it out and see. And then I just have some bags of soil that I purchased, organic soil. It's on top of these crates, waiting for me to open them up, mix them in the buckets to raise the tomatoes. And around the tomatoes I'll put some green beans and wax beans, etc., which will give nitrogen to the soil. So you have sort of like a double planting, which is helpful to the tomato plants. So that's our progress so far. It's a lovely day. Thank you for watching. Well, good afternoon. Here we are, the 30th of June, and this is the little garden in front of my apartment. And I've been doing some weeding. The daylilies bloomed June 27th, the first of the daylilies. And they're just spectacular. Let's see how some of the little things in this garden are going. Well, here's our little strawberry plant, which is quite productive considering. Oh, there's a couple that are ripe. So, I think it's a spider. Over here in the hosta has a bunch of spider webs inside that hosta plant. I don't know if he's the one that's been nibbling on the strawberries, but it's not the bunny rabbit. We have a bunny rabbit that comes in every night here in the lawn about 10 feet to my left and hunkers down when he sees me. And we'll go over here to the little blue hydrangea underneath the butterfly, which originally flower heads broke the stems, so we trimmed it back because there was a lot of growth at the root level in the pot. So when we put it in the ground, we trimmed them all back, and it's just coming along beautifully. Hostas are purple buds, and looks like they're popping, and the weather's really warmed up. It's been great. And one poor little tarragon, which I was hoping to winter over in my apartment this winter. I'm not sure how tarragon goes inside. Or the grow light. I have a grow light. We'll see. It's a wonderful fragrant herb with an anise or licorice flavor. It only does well fresh. It doesn't do well dried. My hope is that I'll have some winter tarragon. We're going to go around the corner to my big garden. Now this is just 10 feet over to the left of the side of the apartment, and I've moved the big pots out. They're doing well. The tomato plants actually have fruit. The one Italian style tomato is about 3 inches. And I just purchased some Mexican tarragon, some yellow chili peppers, because there were bugs that ate up the other chili pepper plant. Let's see what else is there. Okay, these herbs I just purchased a few days ago. It's the opal or purple basil, which I happen to like a lot, and some sweet basil because the other sweet basil just didn't do well. And the pepper plant with the flowers and buds. I've already picked and pruned these and have some in the refrigerator and been using just out of the pots. They're going into the pot right to my right. And then there's another pot or a stake here in the back, a metal stake, which I hope to get some winter squash started in this soil leveled off back here. We have chives. We cut it in half and gave half to one of our family members. And then there's cilantro, which we have to restart. We're a little late getting cilantro restarted. That's pretty much by the wayside. Cilantro is a Chinese parsley. Either you like it or you don't. It's used in a lot of Spanish-style foods, and I happen to have developed a great taste for it with sauces, like mango sauces, tomato sauces, or anything you can put together. And we have to straighten out that mound. So over here is Okay, so now we're back to the pot next to the herbs, and this is a tomato plant that's already produced little green tomatoes, maybe about an inch around, and they're called Sun Sugar. So that's going to be like a cherry tomato, and then I have either wax beans or green beans in all my tomato pots. They give nitrogen in the soil, and which tomato plants seem to like. Last year or the year before I did that, and they're old plants, but they're coming up, so we'll have beans. And let's go on to the next one, which is the eggplant, Chinese eggplant, which I made some homemade solution of soap suds and got the bugs that were eating it, and the poor little sweet basil and tarragon. They're sort of picking up after all. So let's see what happens there. The beautiful purple flowers through the eggplants. Chinese eggplants are long, thin, narrow, very dark. They're great when they're young, about 6 inches long. You just either cut them in little $half-dollar size slices, probably a good 3/4 inch. Marinate them a little bit with some oil, a little seasoning. Put them on the grill or put them in the fry pan, and they're a delight. They're just wonderful. And then we also had, I think it was the jalapenos that the bugs really took after, but we're working on that. Meantime, we've purchased new ones to supplement. So we'll go on to the next pot, which is another tomato plant that I have green beans popping up in the soil. You can see they're only in a few days, but with this hot weather, they've just bloomed. Okay, what I've done in this same pot is pulled out the tag because they were inside against the rim of the container. Is an heirloom tomato. It's orange, pale orange with dark orange stripes. So we're really looking forward to seeing this tomato. We've never grown it before, and it's quite productive. I've pruned it all back to get all of the what they call suckers or extra new growths, which you don't want on a tomato plant. If you want good production, and then I prune the little flower heads when they come. If there's like 10 little buds, I'll prune out all but 3, so that 3 tomatoes will grow on one little cropping. That's what I do with my tomatoes. You seem to have a bigger tomato and instead of a bunch of little ones. And it's healthier for the plant. It doesn't get too heavy. And the next one over, you can see the green beans are up already. They even have leaves on them, these. I pulled them out. They were in closer to the wall. I pulled them out to the edge of the fence so they have more air circulating around them. Here we are at this last little tomato plant. And these are plum tomatoes. And if I can get over here, I'm holding up, I guess it's about 1.5 inches with a little half-inch baby next to it, already in growth. And these little plum tomatoes are great for sauces, absolutely great for sauces. They're firm, they don't have too much water. And when you make a sauce, you want to drain your tomatoes in a strainer or a colander, and so that when you add your lime juice to your sauces, it does a nice preservative with cilantro and other onions and so forth that you use. So those are my containers. Here's my little rock pile. And these little planters I'm going to, we'll decide sometime what we're going to do with those. So it's really nice here in the shade today. There's a little breeze kicking in, which is great for these plants to get the breeze. They don't get a whole lot of sunlight, but I did have great luck with that dark purple-red tomato a couple of years ago, so we're trying. Keeps me busy. And they all have, I think the first 2 pots have green beans, and the last 2 tomato plants have wax beans, which are yellow beans, which are terrific when they're young. The mountain laurel has finished blooming, and the dried little clumps of brown are what were those gorgeous white and brilliant pink little dots on them. It's looked like it's doing very well this year. And then back over here by my kitchen window, I have some petunias which seem to have done very well. So I put them on a plant hanger, hoping a hummingbird will come by. So that'll be it for today. One, two, three, four, 5, 6, 7 pots are watered, staked, organic dry fertilizer last night. Took a little spade fork and moved it in the top layer of the soil. So this 10 o'clock in the morning is spectacular. So on the far left we have a merino plum tomato, and next we have the black crim heirloom. The next third pot in from the left is the a new variety of heirloom. It's orange, jagged stripes over a yellow round tomato. Then next up we have Ichibani, or Chinese eggplant with some herbs. Back in on these tomato plants we have green beans and wax beans in the bottom, all coming up. Everybody's setting fruit. I picked over here this little yellow cherry tomato. I'm not sure the variety. It's indeterminate, so we have to be very careful with the height. I'm not sure about the heirlooms over here, how tall they get. I know the black crim 2 years ago got nice and tall, so that's in the orange stake, and then the yellow stake is the new heirloom. I'm not sure how tall that's going to get, so we're winding them up through the middle of the cages. And then we put our herbs. We invested in some fresh herbs: tarragon, a yellow hot chili, purple basil, and sweet basil. And in this pot to the far right has sweet peas and an heirloom squash, which we're going to vine up and try and keep up and hope we get not air around so we don't get a powdery mildew, which I've fought all my life in Massachusetts here when I was on Cape Cod. I had a large garden in the back of the West Dennis home and raised beds, and I never had luck with summer squash. It always got powdery mildew. Well, it's actually 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 5-gallon containers, and then in the back I've tried to level out the soil so that I can put in probably after the beginning of August we'll put in lettuces and all kinds of fall herbs. We'll try to get some other herbs in there after it settles down, get a cool evening and get out and put some seeds in. I had some luck up at the Council on Aging. They picked loads of lettuce, herbs, and I'll try and get over there today. We're just at the corner of the building where we were, 8 feet, and this is the front garden with the daylilies blooming. I think we got them on a previous shot. And it needs a little weeding, it needs a little tending. We've been eating the strawberries that a volunteer group came in last year, some scouts, a scout program, and they put strawberries all along the front of this building. And some other tenants on the other hallway have been enjoying those strawberries over there. And the beautiful mountain laurel. Now all the bud clusters have dried. They're drying up and they'll get really dark brown, and then they'll get in there and pick them off. And we'll just enjoy the green for the rest of the year. So this is Ruth in Norfolk, Massachusetts, signing off for today. Hi, it's August 4th, 2014, and we're at Ruth's garden on the side of her apartment, and things are really coming along great. So here we are, a little bit of a close-up. On the right, we have heirloom butternut squash we got from Accord, New York, and sweet peas, and they're going to climb up the cage and climb up the little shepherd's hook as they progress, and the herbs next to it are doing really good. We have the tarragon, the sweet basil, the purple basil, and then in the next container we have a lot of green beans and wax beans. There was a tomato plant in there, little cherry tomatoes, but they weren't producing well at all. We didn't like them. We didn't like the flavor, so we dispensed with those, and we're letting the beans take over, which are going to be spectacular. All those beautiful little purple flowers, and they'll be ready to eat when they get about twice that size. They're nice and young, and the seeds aren't big. We just blanch them for maybe 3 minutes in a little bit of hot water and just serve them up whole and cut them in half. And so that planter is really coming along good. So we'll go over to the next container. So this one has the Ichiban long purple thin eggplant, which they're coming along. They're about the size of the green beans, but once they get growing, we pick them young, and there's a lot of flowers, purple flowers, which is now turned into small little eggplants, and they're just marvelous. Tender when you get them young, no hardly any seeds, and you just slice them up and make a little olive oil and some herb mixture, and lightly just coat them and put them on a pan and grill them, or put them in the oven if you don't have a grill. Then right next to it, we do have the heirloom tomato, and it's really doing well. It's branching out, it's growing, it's indeterminate, so it will keep coming off the top of this cage. I keep putting the new growth, the stems, we keep putting them inside the cage so that they will sprout out as they move up, and I'm not sure how high it goes. I'll have to read the tag. And this is a picture on the little tag is like a orange tomato with bright orange zigzaggy stripes. It's very interesting. I'm looking forward to it. It all has some green beans or wax beans to give a little nitrogen to the soil, and I use an organic dry fertilizer every couple of weeks and just water it well. Now this tomato plant is the black crim, and the green beans are doing well. Well, our black crim tomato is inside there in the dark, and it's growing. It's probably 3 inches by 2.5. It's going to be great, and I hope there's a lot more. Now this is our Roma plum tomatoes, and they're spectacular. They're just popping all over the place. They're on a stake rather than in a tomato cage, and we have one in there that's has a very interesting shape. It's on a stake, not in a cage. It's doing really well. We have one tomato right there that had started a nice round bottom, and then it has a ring, and then the plum tomato is growing right on top of it. So we're curious to see what this looks like when it's full. So I've already picked two pink ones and had them turn red, and they're spectacular. And the back garden, we don't have anything in yet. We're not sure what time we'll get some late fall crops in. This is the orange heirloom, which has a tomato inside. Not too many tomatoes on it. We do have some green beans. Oh, we've got a nice little green bean there. So they're companion plants. And then over here is the black crim tomatoes. And in the middle there, there it is one prominent one. And we're hoping for dozens more. Happy gardening. Bye-bye. Hi, it's Wednesday afternoon. Quite warm, quite brilliant right now. We had a little bit of cloudiness yesterday. So the hostas are really grown. They're ready to be divided. We'll share them with somebody who's interested. The daylilies are just about at their final peak, and the little petunias I moved around seem to be doing okay. Well, we did happen to lose the Christmas cactus. Somehow it got all banged up, so we emptied it out. We will try again next year with a fresher Christmas cactus. Maybe in Thanksgiving there'll be some pretty ones. And my little rain gauge, I haven't checked it, is cute. It got broken, but I still love it. It's a dragon with a water gauge in it. I'll take it out and clean the water gauge so we can read it. And then over here we have the little hydrangea. It's just hiding back in there in the middle of the garden. This is my section. The other section is for other neighbors if they wish to adopt it. And the beautiful mountain laurel is... All the sticky little flower heads are on their way to drying out, and we'll clean them up when we do. So that's it for Ruth's Two Little Gardens. Thank you. This is from inside my kitchen window looking out at my little garden. And we put up a hummingbird feeder last week, and 2 days later we had a male and a female ruby-throated hummingbirds. They're tiny, they're adorable. We bought this little hummingbird feeder, and it's been quite active. It sits in the sun, so we have to change the sugar water every couple of days. And they're just a charm to watch. They come in, they'll land on the tomato cages, check everything out. They were here at 5:30 this morning feeding a female, so we had a good time. I was hoping if I'm really quiet and I get way back against the wall in the kitchen. We might have a visitor. Well, we have a little hummingbird who just got skittled because I'm moving around. Well, hi, it's August 28th, 2014. We just had a visitor to the feeder. I hope he or she comes back. I couldn't get a look, but I have a setup here that I hope that I'll get some pictures of the little hummingbirds that frequent through this area of Massachusetts. They live here during the season. They arrive in the spring and they'll leave next month in September. Well, we have the female just feeding here. The male was here just a few minutes ago, but he saw my movement and took off. This is my kitchen window. It's a joy to see in the morning. I used a sink sprayer to put a little fresh water out on the stand there, the little shepherd's hook and the feeder, and I read in a book that if you have the spaces and the equipment, you can put up a small spray during hot, warm days, and the hummingbirds like to dive through the spray, but I don't have a place to set that up, and we are on water restrictions here, so we don't think we can accomplish that. It will be fun to see. Ruby-throated hummingbirds that habitat this area during the migration in the summer time. They're very territorial. They will fight over their feeding stations. Hi, well, we're outside. It's the evening and nice and cool after a very hot 2 afternoons. I've managed to take a lot of extra plants out. So I've been picking, got rid of all the beans, the yellow beans, wax beans, you call them, green beans. I had, about 3 weeks of really nice handfuls. Then I took them out of the planters to give room for the tomato plants. I have one little 2.5-inch eggplant inside, and there's a lot of blossoms on the eggplant, which is broadleaf, lighter colored plant. And then we have one sweet basil plant here. I've taken the tarragon inside. I'm going to experiment this winter in the dining room window, which is right here. And so inside I have some herbs planted, tarragon and a sweet basil, and from the garden out here. An experiment. Maybe we'll keep rolling with that during the winter. And I do have a grow light, which I intend to use inside during the winter to help augment the light that the plants need. So we'll see. With the heat, the plants are really ripening up. So here we are to the other side with their 5-gallon pots with organic soil and some shards in the bottom for drainage and holes in the bottom for drainage. And we're hoping they're not all mislabeled. The one on my left, filming left, is plum tomatoes, and then the one in the middle is allegedly the stripy, and it's going to be yellow tomatoes, and then the one on the right is the black crim, which gets a very deep purple top with a deep red bottom. I had a lot of success with that variety of heirlooms a couple of years ago here. And then the little eggplant plant. Let's see if we can zoom in on that. Beautiful purple flowers. And it's setting little tiny fruits. We're here like August 28th, so we still have a good full month to 6 weeks. And if the weather stays hot and warm, things should really pop around. And then the sweet basil I've left outside. And I'm hoping to check and see what I can put in for a winter crop in a couple of these containers here on the right-hand side. And then I took milk cartons and put a netting on it from a package of limes and some bread crumbs and peanut butter mixed to see if we can get some birds. We have a lot of sparrows in this area. Neighbor has a lot of cardinals. He's on the second floor, and he has seed that he puts in little bags and has them in his window, and he's been doing it for years, and he has a beautiful couple of trees outside near his building, so they just love that environment, the cardinals, and they're charming to hear chirp, big loud chirp. Okay, so here's the front garden. We've realigned it. We've taken all the daylilies and put them in a circular pattern to the left. And the hostas, we have different varieties. And then there's a wayward little plant, very furry leaves, which not quite sure what it's going to be. It has leaves that are just like fur, almost. And we're waiting to see what it's going to turn into. I have some mint still growing on the corner, and that's great. So this little garden next year should be all settled in. Gotten a lot of the weeds out of it. And we won't have any more flowers out of these plants this year. I'm going to be looking for some fall, bright little plants to brighten it up. We'll be back in a week or two to see how things are progressing. So here we are, October 2nd, and we're going to leave these plants out for a while, cover them with the tomato plants. We have 3 varieties. Aroma, the middle one is still a mystery, and then what we thought was labeled either Mr. Stripey or Black Crim is a yellow, which you can see beautifully now, which we'll pick and we'll use that maybe tonight for dinner. This is the other side of the tomato plants, and the Roma tomatoes are in the back ripening up. We have a whole bowl inside the kitchen that are ripening from the previous picking. So let's go over and take a look. We have a green one up here. We have one just perfect for picking, which we'll pick just above the line. We'll take this one off. Has a little bit of black rot on the bottom, which means this has a little bit of black rot, so the weather has not been good. It's not been warm, so we'll use these up right away. Cut that out, that black rot. They were fertilized with organic fertilizer or organic potting soil. And we have a little one here. Doesn't look too bad. I think we're just going to take it inside. And here's what we have are these new shoots coming in, which if we had a really long season greenhouse, here's even some fruit setting up here. So, and then another stem would be growing from here. We've got a lot of new stems coming off the top of this Roma plant. But it's too late in the season, so we'll probably just do away with this plant and get this pot cleaned up. And so our mystery tomato is over here, and looks like it might be a black crim. It's very dark on the top, and they're very small. Sorry, dropped the tomato. This just might be black crim. And we'll cover it up for a couple of days. It's been cold and rainy, which we hoped it had been rainy more this summer. 2 more down on the bottom. So this might be our black crim, which we had great luck with a couple of years ago. And the little mystery tomatoes, oh my goodness, in the back we have a big yellow one. We think it's Mr. Stripey with all these beautiful, I split it when I dropped it, sort of colors are striped in there. And that's this plant over here with all these tomatoes on it. And so we'll have to move the tags around. And this we think is a black crim because of the very dark top. And we know the Romas have done very well. We have a bowl of them inside. Then over here to the right, we have this little pepper plant we absconded with, and they have been taken care of. And there's little tiny, like a jalapeno pepper in it. So we'll see if it survives this cold spell. So here we've pretty much finished up with the front. We've transplanted some, moved things around. There's one little pot of sweet basil, which we'll be taking the leaves off of. Then we make sure they're nice, clean, pat them dry, and put them on a plate, regular plate, that's microwave safe. And we microwave all our sweet basil and our opal or purple basil in the microwave. Put them in either jars or little bags. And we put them in a plate with olive oil. Scrunch up a few for an Italian dinner some night. If you do it in the afternoon or noontime, then the oils from the basils that have been dried infuse into the olive oil. And then you just serve them on the table, and people can dump their crusty bread in it and enjoy the savory of the summer. Then over here in my yellow pot, I've transplanted the tarragon, some, I think there's a flat leaf parsley in there, and let's see what if I can see what we put in there. On the very right is some cilantro that I had started inside. So I put it all, those three, the flat leaf parsley and the tarragon, into one pot, cool spot to winter over, not where we're going to have any deep freeze. So it's been a pleasure. And that's probably all we're going to do this year. So have a great winter. Look forward to the spring. This is Ruth in Norfolk signing off.